Okay. Hello. Okay, so welcome for those who are joining me today. So today we are doing day 4. We're a week late. My apologies, but that's life. So today, let me just turn the lights on here. Whoa. There, that's better. Okay, so thank you for joining me. For anybody who's able to join me today, we are doing day 4 of our underwear sew along, and today we are going to focus on attaching waistband elastic, and specifically we're talking about wide waistband elastic. So this is your this is like the soft touch 1.5 inch waistband elastic. And we're going to talk about, I'm going to demonstrate how to sew a burrito roll, which is a way of doing the enclosed gusset. Okay, so I don't think there's any other housekeeping to take care of. So the next 3 days are really busy. Hopefully we're able to get through all of the content. Tomorrow is going to be the busiest. We are doing all of the fold over elastic and picot elastics. And yeah, so anyways, thank you for joining me. We might as well just go ahead and get started. So I'm going to show the burrito roll technique, which is a way to enclose seams so that they are hidden inside of a garment. And when you sew the gusset, which is the crotch piece of a pair of underwear, it's nice to not have extra seams there. And for all of you who use sergers on your knit fabrics on a regular basis, you're going to have to pull out your sewing machine because you are sewing 3 pieces of fabric together, and you can get quite bulky seams if you use your serger. I'm not saying you can't, but before you go ahead and sew a whole bunch of pairs of underwear and before trying them on, if you want to try a serge seam, you certainly can, but try it before you make a whole bunch, because you'd be surprised the difference between just sewn versus serged. Okay, so anyways, I think that we will start with the burrito roll, and then we're going to do all the waistband elastic. Okay, so let me just pull up the comments here. Okay, so just adjust the light so that it's facing down. Okay, so we're gonna flip the camera around. Okay, so we are looking at my my sewing space. Just gonna push that back, give myself a little bit more room. Okay, so to do the burrito roll today, what I've cut out is the Kiki briefs from Mimi, or from St. Clair. So I've got my front piece, I've got my gussets. You need 2 gusset pieces. You need 1 for lining and 1 for the outside. And I've got my back piece. So let me just remove these. Okay, so to sew the burrito roll, you start with laying your sorry, one sec. I'm just going to pull up something here. Okay, so I've got the back. Here, okay, and I'm going to put it right side down. Okay, now the easiest way to sort of remember what you need to do is that you want your right sides to match, right? So, as if you were sewing this as a regular garment, you would sew this together, open it up, and you would have the right fabric in the right direction. But to do the burrito roll, we have to add this extra layer, which is the liner. So we're going to tuck that under. Then you're going to take your lining piece, okay, and whatever side you want facing up, you want to face the wrong side of your back, okay? So first I'm going to line these up. Now remember that when you're sewing corners like this together, you want them to meet at the seam line. Okay, this is a common, so I'm not sure if you can even see that. Some people will put them together like this, edge to edge. Okay, if you do that, you're going to have, it's not going to join properly. So remember that when you're pinning, you want it to join at the seam line. Clip. And let's go to the other end. And I'm using, this is a poppy jersey fabric from Mimi Fabrics. This is one of the solids, and this was one of the summer prints that I made a top out of. And I'm just using the scraps. And now line up the middle. Okay, so we have the first piece together. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your back and you're going to roll it up and out of the way. Okay. Now we're going to take our front piece and again we're going to line up right side to right side. And I don't want too many moving pieces at once, so I'm just going to temporary clip those together. And now we're going to roll this piece under. Okay, and now we make our little sandwich. Now there's lots of really great tutorials, like the Kiki pattern from St. Clair. It has a great, video tutorial, but sometimes people need to see it in person, which is why I decided to include it tonight. It's actually a technique you can use on lots of other pieces, like lined bodices of like tanks and stuff, to get a really nice closed edge. You just have to think through your layers. Now we're going to line up those. Okay, so now we're ready to take that to the sewing machine. Whoops. There we go. Okay, so I am going to set my I'm going to set my sewing machine to you can use either a straight stretch stitch, or you can use a narrow zigzag, or you can use a narrow lightning stitch. I prefer to just use simple one-step zigzag, and I'm going to set it for a length of 2, and I'm going to bring down the width to 1.5. I have a jersey needle set here, actually. Just going to take 2 seconds to just double check my stitch here. Yeah, so I'm happy with that. And I want to test what it'll look like when it's from the other side. I'm happy with that too. Now you don't have to do a forward and backward if you don't want to, because this edge here is going to get caught into the fold over elastic. And then just check to make sure that you've caught all your layers. We'll come around to the other side. Okay, so now we have our burrito sandwich. Again, check to make sure. If you have a thicker fabric, or so if you're sewing with French terry, you may want to grade the seams, which if you don't know what that means, it just means that you're going to take your layers and trim them back so that they're not all the same. On a jersey or like modal, it's really not as big a problem, but you can see how that will reduce the bulk. But anyway, okay, And then this is the magic. You're going to flip it inside out. And ta-da! We have this fantastic, you can see that there's no raw edge here. And on the inside, whoops. Okay, and on the inside, it's just as pretty. Okay, so that is burrito roll for an enclosed seam. Or sorry, for an enclosed gusset. Okay, so now let's whoops. Now let's talk about wide waistband elastic. So and then also how to attach it. So wide waistband elastic comes in lots of different colors. This is, you know, example of the soft touch. It's very nice to work with, super comfy, almost silky feeling. If you've not used wide waistband elastic, this is commonly used for men's boxers, like men's boxer briefs. You can also, you'll often see it for, say like pajama pants will sometimes have this instead of a knit band or an encased band. So it's an option. It's what my husband prefers on his briefs, and I've got 3 pairs sewn up and ready to go for him. So these are my offcuts because I've cut the elastic ready to go. A good thing with these wide elastics, really any elastic, if you don't use it often or maybe you've never heard this, but you should also always give it a good stretch before you measure, just to make sure that if there's any sort of like crispiness or like manufacturing sort of chemical or anything in it, sometimes you may hear that like crunchy sort of sound, and it'll also give you a sense of whether or not they stretch the same amount. So you can see not all elastics are going to stretch exactly the same, and it's good to know that before you get started, because so for example, this one compared to this one, quite a bit more stretch in this one. So just something good to know, give it a stretch, get a sense of how it feels. So let's show you a couple ways of joining this. So this stuff is fairly thick, and sewing it together like this and then having this bulk of a seam is not my favorite. You will see some places say that your finished seam ends up like that. I'm not a fan of how that looks. So let's show you a couple options. So first option is, sorry, just grabbing my trimming scissors. So I had a straight edge here. So first option is to overlap. I think what I'm going to do is, yeah, let's do that. Okay, so the first option is to just overlap and sew with a zigzag. For this, I would usually use, you can either use a single step zigzag or you can use a wider zigzag. So I'm going to use a 3-step zigzag, and I've got it set at a width of 5 and a length of 0.5. I do find with elastic, make sure that you do have thread tails, because if you don't, it's pretty easy for this to get stuck under your feed dogs. So I like to make sure I've got good thread tails to pull it through. And you want to start a little bit of the ways down. You're going to want to reverse. And then you're just going to go backward and forward a couple times. So that's your first option. It's simple, it's basic, but it does the job. That is very strong. It's not going to give. However, you may not be a fan of that. Of course, you can either you can make your zigzag wider so that it covers most of the overlap. That's certainly an option. Or you can do 2 rows, or you can do, there's ways to fix that, right? So I could just go ahead and do a second row here. Right, so that will fix it to a fair amount. So you may be happy with that. I've mucked my bobbin up here. One sec. Sorry, technical difficulties. Talk amongst yourselves. I think I've only got 2 people joining me tonight for the live portion. But of course, this will be posted in the So Let's Talk event group, hosted by Meme Fabrics and Poppy Monroe in the event. Let's try that. Okay, so there we go. There's our first option. It's not the prettiest, but it does the job. Okay, so next option. And so a good tip if you want, I don't know if you've ever seen, if you ever do a stitch book, it's something my mother-in-law, my grandma have always done. It's kind of a neat idea. This is one I have that's for bra making fabrics, but it's a really handy way to not forget what you have already tried. So for example, this one, I've got like a neckline elastic, I've got this kind, and you can even write next to it, like sometimes to remember what the different fabrics are. So this one is my power net. I know that, this is my duoplex. Just different types of elastics, and sometimes it's helpful to demonstrate on them the type of stitch that you're supposed to use. So for example, this is a bottom band elastic for a thing, and you can see that there's 2 different zigzag sizes that you use. So a good idea is to keep these samples, sew them to a stitch book, and you can write next to them the width, the settings on your machine that you liked the most. Okay, so next option, again, this is another simple one. You don't need anything else other than the fabric that you already have. I'm going to set my machine for just a regular straight stitch. You may wonder why I'm showing you so many options, is because there's no one right way to do it. You're going to find one that you like the best, and then that's the one you can use. Okay, so that's joined like that. And then what we're going to do is open this up. And I'm going to set a wide zigzag single step. I'm going to go 5 with a 5 width and a 1.5 length. I'm going to start part of the way down. And what we're wanting to do is to be, actually going to make that a little bit wider. Going to go to 5.5. We want to be on either side of the of our seam. There you go. So again, there's another option. This is going to sit flush, and you can decide whether you want that to be the inside or the outside. Okay, that's your profile that you end up with when you're finished. And again, this is very strong. Some people also, not my favorite, but some people just put the edges up against each other in zigzag. Just a butt together like this and zigzag. It makes me nervous, so I don't do it. I don't know why, but it just makes me nervous that it's gonna come undone. So, but that is another option. So then let me just show you two more ways, and these are ways that use a little extra piece of fabric or scrap or something. So the first one is using a piece of twill tape. So people who do the, butt it up against each other, no problem. But when I do that, I prefer to use a piece of twill tape, which is a woven sorry, I hope you could. So all I've done is I've covered the seam with a piece of twill tape. Now we're going to pass that under the sewing machine with a zigzag. I'm going to go to a 3-step because I want something fairly wide. And again, I'm going to go to a width of 6. This is a 3-step, width of 6 and a length of 0.5. And I don't see my thread tails. There they are. You could pin this if you want to, but I'm a pin minimalist, so I don't. And then we just zigzag. What you want to make sure is that your two edges don't come apart from each other. So I'm just trimming the threads here. Now I'm using obviously a contrasting thread that you can see what I'm sewing. But obviously if you used a black, you wouldn't see that thread at all. So there's another easy one. You can use a piece of ribbon, you can use a piece of twill tape. That's not going to unravel. Again, very strong, very flat. Okay, last option. Is using a piece of fabric. Now, why would you want to do this? Because you're, using an extra piece. Sometimes it's just fun to add a bit extra color. So I've just got a scrap of the underwear that I'm sewing for myself. And what I'm going to do, I'll just give myself some space here. So same idea as the twill tape, but it gives you a little extra space to work with. Sorry. Let's fold that up. And let's fold that down. Tuck it all in. This is going to be nice and neat raw edges. And this time we're going to stitch with a straight stitch. And we're going to just go around the block. Now, if you're having a hard time sewing elastic because you find it's not feeding well, this is a good option because you're sewing on top of fabric, and so you're not catching on the elastic itself. So something to consider if you're having a really hard time getting the elastic to feed under your feed dogs, then this might be a good option for you. You can see I'm having no problems at all getting that to feed. And I like to do an X. And come back over. And come back. Okay, so we're just going to trim that up. And I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, and so there you go. So then you have this joint. Again, very strong. And the one thing that's nice about this is if you're used to putting on your undergarments in the dark, sometimes having that tactile piece there can make it easy to either feel or even just visualize where the back of your underwear is. Okay, so there we go. That's a whole bunch of ways. That's four ways. We've got overlapped, twill tape, sewn flat, and then top stitch down, and with a piece of extra fabric. Okay, so then the last thing to show you today is to go over how to attach the elastic to the fabric of your underwear. So we've got jersey, and we've got our elastic for our waistband elastic. So the first option is to actually just sew it on completely flat. Whoops, sorry. My phone camera is between me and my sewing surface, so if you're wondering if I'm a bit sloppy, that's why. Or the phone shaking, because I'm literally working with something between me and my needle so that you can see clearly. So if you want to just sew it straight onto your garment, you may want to mark your, I don't know if you can see that, but I'm just using an air erasable marker and just marking my seam allowance. And now you may wonder why I'm doing that. If you're sewing it flat on, it's very easy for your bottom layer to wander away and not notice. So if I do that, and And I'm going to sew this with a zigzag. I'm going to use a width of 4.5 and a length of 1.5. Oops, sorry. And so what I'm saying is, as you sew along, I know that this edge has to be coming over to me. Otherwise, it's very easy to all of a sudden walk off the edge of your fabric. And now this may seem unfinished to you, but if you look at your ready-to-wear underwear, you'd be surprised how many are actually just sewn on like this. And you want the left swing of your needle to be right over onto the edge of your elastic. I'll show you what that looks like. There's the front. There's the back. And it's actually quite clean. Good stretch. So there's option one. And of course, so I guess I didn't mention, but you would be making sure to like quarter the band on just like you would for like any other waistband. You may have to apply a little bit of stretch to the elastic. If you do, remember to always hold it at the back if you're stretching, because, and we'll go over this when we do fold over elastic, but if you pull on this without anchoring the back, you're putting a lot of tension on your needle, and you can get out of alignment pretty quickly. So always, if you're stretching, the elastic or really anything that's going under your needle, you're overriding the feed docks a bit, and so you're going, if you don't hold on to it, like I said, you can get out of alignment. Okay, so anyways, so there is option one. Option two, commonly see, is lining up. Sorry, I hit my phone. The edge of your elastic. So if you have a what's it called? If you have, like, say there's a right side or a wrong side to this, you're doing right side to right sides together. Again, same idea. Stitching down. Turn and flip. Right, so we've stitched down. Now we're going to turn right sides together, and then you can choose whether or not you want to top stitch. If I top stitch, I'm going to go a little narrower because I don't want to be swinging off the edge. So I'm going to go down to a 3.5. And that's what that looks like. So you've got a nice clean edge on your front. This is what your back looks like. Fairly clean. Now I'll show you my favorite way to do it. Any questions, by the way? I haven't seen any, but I can't see your comments. So if you do have questions, I know there's only 2 people online. I'd love to know who's joining me. Okay, so another option, and this is mine because I think it looks the cleanest, is to actually start with your wrong side facing up. Oops, sorry, I dropped my elastic. So wrong side facing up, elastic hanging over the edge. Not by much. I don't know if you can see. Really not much at all. Wait a second. Yeah, okay. So right now I've got right side, no. Right, so wrong side and wrong side up for your fabric, right side up for your elastic. And just hanging over the edge of my fabric a little bit. Okay, like that much. And let's give her. Okay. Sorry, I'm having a bobbin. Oh, the joys of live video. I think this is a poorly wound bobbin. It's a bit loose and fortunately it's giving me a bit of a headache. But I'm stubborn and I don't want to wind another bobbin and waste the thread since I'm just doing demonstrations. Okay, so sorry. So back to what we're sewing. So we've got the wrong side of our fabric, the right side of our underwear, and we're going to flip and do a second row of stitching. And again, this is in white fabric or white elastic so you can see it, but if this was black thread, you wouldn't see it at all. Okay, so it might look like, oh, that doesn't look clean at all, but if that's black, you're not going to notice. And so what we're doing by doing it this way, folding it to the front, is now this raw edge is going to be trapped under the edge of the elastic. And you want your left swing of your needle to be as close to the edge of your elastic as possible. And there you go. So why do I like this one? Now that's the inside. So you can see the inside is not significantly different. It's this. But it's cleaner to me. And you have to do 2 passes regardless. So there you go. 3 ways to attach waistband elastic. Flat, straight onto it. Right sides together, stitch, flip and top stitch. Or this way, which is wrong side up of the fabric, right side up of your elastic, turn. Now you have an encased edge. Okay, so just trying to think if there's anything else that we were supposed to do tonight. I don't think so. We were just focusing on the waistband elastic. Like I said, if you haven't, I'm just gonna flip you around now. Okay, so I think that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. Like I said, if you have never made a stitch journal or stitch memory thing, this is a good example or a good opportunity to do it, to remember all of your different finishes options. Hope that was helpful. If you got any questions, you can add them into the comments later. Tomorrow is a busy day. We're going to do all of the fold over elastic, and again, I've got multiple options. And if we have time after doing the fold over, then we will do the picot as well. I decided not to do bands because there are so many tutorials on bands, for neck bands, for bands, for anything. And really I wanted to focus on all the elastics because I think those are the most sort of elusive. As soon as you start adding notions that you perhaps don't sew with on a regular basis, that's when people start to get perhaps nervous or apprehensive about trying them, but they're so awesome. So give them a try. Again, if you're not so, there is still one pattern company whose promo code is still, hi Teresa, thanks for joining me. There's still one company, Primrose Dawn, who still has her promo code valid till July 31st. If you haven't had a chance, all the other promo codes finished last week. I'd love to see your attempts at doing your stitch journals for your elastic. If you think that that's something that would be helpful to you, I'd love to, see them in the comments of the event. Just show me that you're giving it a try. And any questions, or you're getting confused, or whichever, I'm curious to know which version of joining wide waistband elastic you like the most, and as well what attaching to your main fabric you like as well, because everyone's got different techniques, and perhaps you even have one that I haven't talked about tonight, because there are as many ways to do this as there is flavors of Baskin Robbins ice cream. So I think that's it for tonight. I will see you tomorrow. Okay, have a great night, everybody. Take care. Hopefully you those of you in Southern Ontario aren't getting too crazy weather. I know we've had a lot of storms today as well, continuing. So that's it. Okay, take care. Bye.